Hello, welcome to our podcast on infant and toddler development. We're coming to you from Triton College Communication Department, and today we're going to have a conversation with Zelda. Zelda is a parent, and she is going to share her experiences with her pregnancy journey and her postpartum journey, and talking about a little bit about self-care all throughout that. So welcome, Zelda. Thank you for coming.
I'm Zelda. I am a mom of two. I have a teenager and a toddler. So much fun. I have been with my partner for 10 years. I currently work in higher ed at this college we're in right now, community college. And I'm a psychology student and a psychology nerd. And I love talking about this kind of stuff. So when you asked me, I almost cried with happiness. So I'm really excited.
I'm really happy you almost cried with excitement.
I really did.
I
I'm not
also
even
was
joking.
crying with excitement when I realized that this would be a great, especially from our previous conversations, which I know our listeners have no idea of. But based on our previous conversations and being a psychology major, I'm sure that's playing a bigger role into your parenting now. So even if you do something, and this is presumptive language, I'm sorry, but even if you do something where you're like, that wasn't good parenting, you probably are able to be like, that's why it wasn't good parenting.
Absolutely.
As a teacher, I do the same thing all the time where it's like, I know the psychology of this, but am I doing it?
Who can do it all the time?
Who can do it all the time?
Nobody.
Yes. So as a parent, what's the most rewarding part of parenthood for you?
For me, and this is my personal bias, my children, I think, bring a lot of joy to people. I don't know, my daughter, she's a very exuberant person, and my son, he just makes everybody giggle and laugh. So I don't know, I think what's rewarding is that they feel very comfortable being themselves and their big personalities. So it's nice to see that, because I don't know, sometimes you feel like, oh, well, especially with parenting, you're like, okay, all I'm really doing is taking care of my kids.
Yeah.
You're like, that's actually contributing to the future and resisting certain things or adding joy to certain things. So yeah, that's what's rewarding to me.
I've been very lucky to see pictures and videos of your kids, and your description was spot on with the joy that they bring. So, as a parent, what are some of the challenges you face? Is there a particular challenge that is this is the biggest challenge I've ever faced as a parent, or a bunch of little challenges all throughout?
Both, probably. The biggest one I would think is, for me, having a second kid, having two kids, not just one, because you double your amount of kids. But I don't know, it gave me a lot of respect for parents who have 5 kids or more, because I think both my grandparents had 6 kids each or something. And I'm like, I don't know how. Just because for me, I always want to be intentional and give my kids individualized attention. But then you have another kid and you're like, oh, okay, now I don't have any extra necessarily juice in my brain. So I just kind of have to divide it, but prioritize. And it's rough, but you get used to it. And one of the things that's helped me a lot is getting better at asking for help.
I think as women, and this is a whole conversation rabbit hole that we have to be careful not to go down, it's so hard not to ask for help.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. I don't know what it is. Just say help, please. And yet,
I don't know. We're supposed to do everything, I guess, and just be.
Do you ever find teaching your children for them to ask for help? Mm-hmm. It's easier for you to tell them how to ask for help?
1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't you ask for help? I'm like, especially for me. I'm like, why didn't you ask me? I don't know. But I think I quadrupled down on it though, because I'm like, don't be like me. Do not struggle unnecessarily.
I have the joke that my favorite hobby is being a hypocrite.
Oh yeah.
Especially with asking for help.
Yeah.
So speaking of asking for help, how has your relationship with your partner changed, evolved throughout becoming a parent?
We've always had a really, it sounds corny, but we've always had like a very good relationship. That's kind of making it.
But I've heard some of your relationships, and it's kind of like a little modern fairy tale.
No, I mean, not really, but we've always really been good at communicating. And where we have struggled even before because he's my daughter's stepdad, so he's been around. She was alive when she was 5 when he came to the picture. We've always been really good at communicating. But one of our struggles we've had is when we don't have enough time to connect with each other, or just hang out or have conversations, just time like that. So when you have one kid, it's already a little difficult, but then you have two, and one's a baby and one's in high school, and we both have full-time jobs. So after, like I said, when you have a second kid, you have to kind of divide that. So does your partner. So you have to rely on each other a little bit more. So then it's not so much like it's just us. It's like now I have to ask you to kind of like not manage each other, but kind of like, work, which no one likes to say that word about a relationship, but it is important, because you do have to, when you have children, especially when they're very small and totally, completely dependent on you, you kind of have to force yourself to have time with each other, and no one really wants to feel like they have to do that. They want to be like, oh, it just happens naturally, everything's wonderful, and it's like, no, you got to kind of push it sometimes, because it's worth it when you do it. And like I said, I thought because we had such a good relationship that we were above petty fights, but if you're knee deep in the postpartum trenches, it's 3 a.m, we're whisper fighting a lot to each other. A lot of if you wake this baby up, I swear to God. It was not pretty. I'm like, we're better than this. I'm like, no, we're not really. We're just tired.
I'm sorry for laughing, because it sounds humorous outside of it.
It is,
but
now.
I'm sure in the moment it was not as funny.
No, it wasn't funny. Well, I'm not saying no, girl, how could you? How could you laugh? How dare you?
Right.
No, but it was I'm like, why are we doing this? And it was we're exhausted now. But now I'm the same as you. I'm like, this is stupid. What are you talking about? Just go to sleep. One of you go to sleep.
I once heard anything plus time equals comedy, and yeah,
Dead.
Exactly.
Too soon? No, not too soon.
So with being a parent and with working, and having a partner, I know you've already talked a little bit about the challenge of having the balance between just children and partner, but then you throw work into it. How do you balance all of that?
Practically, I am fortunate where I have a good support system. So my son goes to daycare, and we love his daycare provider. My daughter's in school, and she's old enough now where she can and her school's down the street from our house, so she can kind of get herself to and from places. But so we have that where our kids are taken care of when we're at work. My partner and my schedules are kind of, what's it called, stacked, where he has to be at work at 6 a.m. So I take Atlas to daycare, but then he gets out really early, so he picks him up. So that works out. Our schedules work out a little good.
So you're balancing your relationship with your partner.
Yes, but for me, actually going to work is kind of a break, which sounds wild, I know, but it's I like my job, first of all, so I'm very lucky. But I don't know, when I'm at home, I have 2 kids, and I have a partner, and I have pets, and I have all these adult responsibilities, but at work, it's kind of I can manage my time without somebody asking me for a bunch of snacks, or I'm trying to lock into something, and then my daughter's I have a crisis. So it's okay, sorry, I gotta go deal with that now. My thing's at work, I can kind of focus a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I do what I want. No, not really, but kind of more than at home.
Employment, right? Yeah. Whatever you want within the realm of
work.
Yes.
What is allowed? What is acceptable?
Right. Exactly. So, since becoming a parent, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about yourself?
So maybe good, bad, and neutral. Good is I've realized that I am able to self-reflect, even when it's not comfy to do so.
Yeah.
Because to me, you can't have kids without doing that. That's in my mentality, but your kids will get you to do that. Because like having children, parenting will get you to say like, why did I do it like that? Why was I mad about this? Why did I choose this instead of this? So I'm thankful that I'm able to like look at myself in the mirror, even if I don't like what I see sometimes, and just say, hey, maybe I can course correct. Maybe I can try a different way. I don't get so like stuck in a certain thing if I think it's not working for my kids or the family or me. Neutral. One realization is I found I had a neurodivergent because it's fun being neurodivergent without kids, and then you add kids, and then it makes it's like a little harder to ignore.
So you found out you were neurodivergent after you had kids?
Both of them.
After both of them?
Both of them. I mean, I knew probably some, if you know, but diagnosed, no, not until I had both my children.
How did that make you feel, being like a parent and then finally being like, oh, this is a missing part of like, now I understand why I do this, or now I understand why my brain thinks like this? Like, how did that feel?
It was wild at first, I'm sure. I don't exactly remember there was a lot of stuff going on because it was kind of like a realization, but also like yeah, duh. Are you surprised, my friend? But I didn't think I feel anything that was sort of like panicky, like what do I do now? I think it was like, okay, like what can I do now for my kids and for me? Because it's very genetic.
Yes.
So if I find out I am, which probably was because I was seeing things about my kids and I'm like, I do that, and that's, they're little mirrors of yourself sometimes. So I was like, well, now we just got to make the household neurodivergent friendly, because if you are, it works, and if you're not, it'll probably help you some way anyway. So
yeah, absolutely.
It probably helped me also realize like that whole like everyone's brains don't work the same, which if you know about children's development, it's like obvious, but like some people still I think kids are like little adults and they need to make certain decisions. So I think like those things can kind of like get stuck in your head somewhere, and you're like, what? So if you realize they're like, no, even all the adults' brains are built differently, and some are even like built even a little extra special differently.
Yeah.
It makes you more empathetic to like kids when they're like not necessarily like following norms and that. Yeah.
All that, yeah.
All that,
yeah. Well, it's interesting because especially with infants and toddlers, we are either like, I've found working with people and talking with people, they either have the conception of infants and toddlers as, oh, they can do more than what I think is realistic of what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, oh, but it's a baby. Mm-hmm. It's a toddler. And they kind of coddle a lot more. Mm-hmm. But I mostly see when people don't know much about child development, it's either super coddly or super like, yeah, I'm adultifying them way before they're mentally ready to be.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to find that balance of it's a person trying to figure it out in the world. Yeah. Just like us as adults, honestly.
That's
like
it. A lot of what I do is like, because I know they're kids and they're different, but I'm like, I wouldn't like it if someone said when I had to eat every meal all the time and what it was without me being able to ask for what I like, and then getting like frustrated with me when I didn't want to eat that thing.
Yes.
Yeah, with all empathy to parents, because I know kids are frustrated when they don't want to eat certain foods. I completely understand that, but also like, yeah, like it's hard being a kid. It's hard being a kid.
Yes, absolutely. So knowing those lessons about yourself, what kind of parent are you trying to strive to be?
I'm trying to be one that hopefully fosters them to be independent and individuals, but also being their like safe place to land if they need support, like going back to like I teach them if they need help. I can be one person they ask if they don't want to ask anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think another thing I would want to strive for is that ultimately when they're adults, they have like a fondness for their childhood, but if they don't, they feel comfortable telling me about it and talking to me about it.
That's huge. Like just to have that ability to be open enough to be like, I hope that they can at least tell me.
Yeah.
Because some people, we're uncomfortable being told what we're doing wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just part of being human sometimes, is being able to take feedback. So that's huge.
Your kids are the ultimate feedback, man. They're unavoidable feedback.
So if you could give your pregnant self advice, either from your first or second pregnancy, what would you tell yourself if you could go back right now and just be like, hey?
My first time probably, because I think my second time I was more prepared. Mm-hmm. My first one, I'd probably go to therapy, which sounds so easy. It's not, I know, and I don't even know if I could have gone to therapy at that point, but something similar to kind of look inward, because it's worth doing before you have kids, I think, because it's hard being a kid and it's hard being a parent, but as the parent, you have to be the one that's the rock. So if you need help with that before you have a tiny helpless person in your life, that's fine. But I know it's, like I said, it's not 100% accessible for everybody, so I don't know, like, do something that is like selfish, maybe, like help yourself, not like in a selfish way, but you know what I'm saying? Like, do something for yourself so that you can be a good self for your little ones.
Yeah, take care of yourself, basically.
Right.
Like, do something you enjoy.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if therapy is always enjoyable.
Therapy is not always enjoyable.
Not
but
always.
Sometimes you're hit with some good truths.
Good truths.
Whether it comes from you or a therapist, different story. All right. So, last question on parenting itself is, if you have a disagreement on parenting style with your partner or family member, I don't know if you've experienced this, or even just being at the grocery store and someone decides to parent your kid for you, how do you handle a parenting disagreement?
If it's a stranger, probably just be like, okay, have a good day. Like, kind of get away. Family member, like somebody I'm going to interact with in the future, it really depends. So I would say, first of all, I would say, like, it depends on what they're questioning.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like just your parenting style. Like if it's like a discipline situation, for example, like
that's usually, it seems what it tends to be is when most people disagree is over discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I actually give an example?
If you would like to, yeah.
Okay. So my son has broken 3 TVs. Okay.
Yeah. So sorry. I'm so sorry for laughing too.
No, you can laugh.
That's a shocking number.
Time has made it more funny. Sprinkle that time on there.
Yes.
I think it's funny because he's 3 years old, so it's like 1 per every year of his life. He didn't do it. He did 2 of them actually, not when he was. But I'm like, hey, you're a little baby criminal. Like, also TVs aren't what they used to be. Okay,
no, they're
basically
not.
like iPhone screens. Because I was like, I'd never heard of this. But I'm like, TVs when we were kids were like glass boxes.
Yeah, they were huge.
So I think if you threw something at it, it would just like fall off. But then now it was like if you
I don't even think you could knock it off by throwing something at it.
But you can just like pop a pixel on the TV, and now it's just like, so he's broken 3 TVs, and one of his grandparents suggested we like punish him, and I was like, first of all, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think they said like give him a timeout or something. I was like, no. And I was just like, no. And I think they were confused. So I was just like, okay, so let me explain how I feel about this.
Yeah.
And I said, he's a very active little child. Clearly, he broke 3 televisions. He doesn't just sit there all day. Like he's a little nuts, as toddlers are wont to do sometimes.
Yep.
So I was like, to give him a timeout, I would have to like plant him in a chair and force him to sit there when he's not used to being forced to sit down anywhere because he is a toddler. And usually he's a little bit of a free-range child, as long as it's safe to do so, you know? But so I was like, I was getting kind of selfishly grumpy because I'm like, I'm going to have to enforce the punishment. I'm going to have to stand over him and say, sit there and make him cry. When I don't really care that much, not that I don't care that he broke the TV, but I'm like, I know he didn't break it because he was like, I'm going to break your stuff. Ha ha ha.
Right.
It wasn't like,
I hope not.
I don't think so, because then he's crying because he can't watch Miss Rachel, you know?
So it's kind of like a self-inflicted like consequence of its
that's
actions.
kind of how I was like feeling about it. I was like, natural consequence, you broke it, you can't watch it. Like, and we didn't yell at him. We're just like, yeah, it's broken. But then I think they were like, well, he broke another. That was the second one he broke. So then he broke another one. And then I was like, they're going to say we should have punished him.
Yeah.
But then I was like, you know what? What I mostly do in those instances where it's like a family member, I have to do a self-check-in and remind myself why I'm choosing not to punish my child or to take whatever action or what someone would deem as inaction maybe for my kid, because I have a reason. I'm very intentional with my parenting.
Yeah.
That is one thing I am confident in. So if they disagree, if they're genuinely good faith curious why I choose what I do, I will explain it to you. But if you're just like, I wouldn't do it like that, I'm like, okay, you're not going to budge, I'm not going to budge. So we agree to disagree, and at the end of the day, like, I'm going to be the one that's the enforcer or the whatever it is. So, like, I'm making the choice.
Yeah.
You're not the parent. You are absolved. Like, that's how I get confused. I'm like, you literally don't have to deal with this. When like family members or like strangers, they're like this is not your kid. I get to go. You don't get to go home with them screaming. Like, why are you telling me what to do? It's so silly. But with my partner, I haven't had that problem very often because we usually pretty.
Yeah, it's a good mesh.
It's a good mesh. But I think, like I said, it's like communication with your partner. Because I've had it other ways with certain people where like it was an argument about something, and I'm like, when people argue, they're just not listening. Yeah. So if it's important because it's like something you value as a parent, have a conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for the example, because I know sometimes like when we're talking about infant and toddler care and development, it's like, oh, what do you do for like, and everyone has their own culture and how they handle it and their own like, okay, here's what my parents did. I think it worked well for me, and so I'm going to do it with my toddler. And then some people are like, I don't like what my parents did with me. I'm not going to do that with my toddler. And some people are like hitting the books hard, and they're like, how many parent shows and how many parenting like things can I read? So it's all over the place. And so just having the nice example of, hey, here's a different point of view is wonderful. So thank you. The meat of why you're here is we've had several conversations. Again, I know the people listening to us don't have access to our previous conversations. I didn't secretly record them, I promise. But postpartum is a huge part of parenting that people either don't talk about or struggle with. And so going from being pregnant to being postpartum, what was your overall experience with that?
The first time I was young. I was 20. So I wasn't as savvy as I was the next time when I was, 31? I can do math. More than 10 years later.
Yeah. Don't worry, no one's going to double check your age.
It's okay. Let me see. So the first one, I think I just didn't know what was going on, really. I was just like, oh, I have a baby now. And you're kind of like, that's like, but it's also like, I don't know how much of it is that when I'm like, oh, I was young, I didn't have experience. I don't know if it's because I was young or if it was with my first kid. Because I've had friends also that were like older when they started having kids, and they were all just like, what is happening right now? Yeah. Because like you said, not a lot of people talk openly about it. So the second time around, I would say it was a much better experience because I did a lot of preparation and I educated myself as much as possible.
Kind of knew what to expect as you were going.
Yes.
Absolutely. So what were some of the biggest physical changes you noticed postpartum?
Physical.
Yeah.
What's TMI?
I mean, we talk about some very things that I'm sitting in class and I'm like, should we be talking about this in class? But it's part of the birthing experience.
It's part of the birthing experience.
Just shy of showing them a birthing video.
I saw that one of those in high school.
I know. I'm like,
and we were kids.
Yeah.
Like, did they make us sign something? I don't know, whatever.
I don't know. I don't think they did, to be honest. And even then, I don't know. I
didn't even want to see that when it happened to me. Like, I know some people, I saw videos where people had like mirrors when they were having, no. Get that away from me. No, thank you. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
What was your question?
I think you kind of answered it a little bit if you're comfortable with sharing that part, but biggest physical changes. Yeah.
Postpartum, well, I was breastfeeding, so that was a thing. Like, I got, my breast got engorged and they're painful.
Yeah.
And my mom kind of warned me about that, but it just is not the same, I guess, as like experiencing it. Like, breastfeeding's very weird. Yeah. And it's another one of those things I think that people are like, if it's natural, it's easy. And it's like, nah, it's awkward. It's weird. And again, I was young and I had no other kids and I didn't have younger siblings either. So I never was around a bunch of babies. So it was kind of my first time being one-on-one, only responsible for a baby all the time. But yeah, breastfeeding is really weird and it messes with your hormones. It makes you sweat and smell terrible.
Really?
So apparently I Googled it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why do I smell so bad? Because like, obviously I was showering less.
Yeah.
And not you, but I'm like, people need to not say nothing about when people don't take showers.
You know, to be honest, you're not the first parent I've heard who said, please don't judge me for showering less during this time.
Because you just, it's like you have, there's a bunch of reasons. But yeah, like I was like, I know I haven't showered, okay? But there's no reason I should smell this bad, bro. And I Googled it and it's like, your body's sending off stank so that your baby can like get your smell. What? It's disgusting.
I mean, it's weirdly endearing for the baby, though.
Of course. Is that the smell they want to remember me from, though?
Will they remember it, though?
I don't. Well, is your smell like that visceral, like if you smell something from your childhood, you're like,
that's true.
You're taken back to where you were?
That's true. So, yeah.
It was so gross. And I was like, I hope this is just me. And everyone was like, I smell terrible. Also, I think like when you're a teenager and you're hormonal, you smell bad, worse.
Yeah.
Bad, worse. You smell worse than when you're an adult and you're sweaty. So maybe it's like the hormone fluctuation plus weird like biological like send outs for the baby.
Yeah. Maybe.
So that was gross and weird. You sweat a lot. A lot of people sweat a lot, especially at nighttime. You get night sweats. I remember sweating from, like, my feet were really swollen. So I guess, like, all the water retention, maybe this isn't what it was, but, like, my feet and my hands were sweating all the time. So I think it was probably trying to get all the puffiness out of me because now the baby wasn't in there.
So it's, like, different way of detoxing your body,
I don't know if it's detoxing or it's just getting rid of extra water, like, in there.
Yeah.
What else? This is one of those things that might be TMI, but I don't care. I have never been so scared to poop in my life, girl.
Really?
Yes, because so you just pushed a baby out of there.
Yeah.
Well, kind of similar landscape. So like,
no, but that makes sense.
With Amelie, I had stitches. So then I was extra scared. I was like, I'm gonna rip my stitches out. It's real. Sorry guys, but it was like, and with Atlas I didn't, but I was like still just like, it was scary. You just thought you were gonna like hurt yourself basically. And you just went through so much like pain down there that you're like, no more please, I guess maybe that's part of it. But that was definitely my experience. I know it's common. They give you stool softeners in the hospital when you have a baby sometimes. So yeah, that was not fun or cute, but it is part of the thing.
Yeah.
If that's happening, I also would suggest tell your medical provider. Don't just like get ashamed and not deal with it because they can probably give you something to make you more comfortable.
Going back to that concept of asking for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Especially your healthcare provider, because they've heard it all and seen it all. But that's just part of like postpartum being kind of like shameful. You're like, I don't want anyone to see me like this. Like, this is a problem everybody else has probably. So it's like, it's not that serious. So, and weirdly also with both of my kids, I don't know why, but I clenched my jaw when I was sleeping.
Huh.
Because it would feel sore in the morning and everything. Yeah, so I don't know if it's like an anxiety thing that happened, but has not happened before then or since, but with both my children when they were very small. I remember waking up with like a really sore jaw, so I don't know what that was very weird, but that was a weird thing.
Just a different thing. Like,
it's different. I'm guessing it has to be some like tension kind of situation, but
more than likely. As you're talking, I'm just thinking about how they call it like the miracle of childbirth, and kind of gloss over the details of, the actual labor or delivery and then recovery for both mom and baby. There's things that don't probably feel miraculous in those moments.
No.
Yeah.
No. And for the baby especially, I'm so sorry, like this is like the last moment. Childbirth is when all the focus is still on the mom, because once the baby pops out, like, bye girl. But then like everyone's staring at the baby usually. But I feel like babies are not given enough respect for like how traumatic birth must be for them. Because they're like, they're nice. They're in like a perfect situation in there. Yeah. And then they get squeezed through a toothpaste tube sized situation for them. It's got to feel like the weirdest, like, I don't know. I can't even know, like, what are those like squeezing machines? And then they're just like, it's light and everyone's staring at them and talking to them in a language they don't understand. And they're like, where's my mom? Yeah. And it's just sensory overload.
Absolutely. It's why I've heard some people argue for water births.
I did
because of that. You did that. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah. Tell us about your water birth.
I actually didn't intend to have a water birth. I had actually almost had a water birth with both of them, but I didn't. When I had my daughter, I had her in the hospital, but it was in like an alternative birthing little suite in the hospital. And I was in the tub, and I remember that I was young too, and like, I don't know, I always have had like sensory ick. So I was just like, I don't want to do that. I've seen videos, it looks weird and I don't like it. And then when I was in labor with her, the only time I was comfortable was when I was in the bathtub. So I'm like, I don't care. I ain't getting out of here. But then for some reason they had to take me out and whatever. But with Atlas, it was actually the opposite. I keep saying his name. It's fine, I already said it was. With the baby, it was the opposite. So I had him at home, and the midwives will rent you a blow-up birthing tub. Okay. Which freaked me out because I was in an apartment building. Yeah. And we didn't want to tell my landlady because I didn't know she'd be weird about it, and I also didn't want to like find a different plan because I was like, I'm kind of good on like, I don't want to figure out a different place to give birth if I already decided to do it at home. But so we're like, she won't know. But when they said you fill up, I like Googled like how much, like is it gonna break the floor? Like how much water is it? It's like 1,000 pounds of water.
1,000 pounds of water.
Because a gallon of water is 8 pounds or something like that. I think.
So you just had basically a pool of water.
I had like a giant, it was so I got scared, but I was like, but I want it, so I'm going to get it. And the midwives I use, they rent them out and they all have names. And mine was Phyllis, which I think was funny because she's one of the midwives on Call the Midwife.
I haven't watched that show.
You should. It's so good. Oh my God. Anyway, side note.
Not that we're plugging TV shows.
No, it's a good one though. If you like childbirth, there's a lot of childbirth in that show.
So people who are listening, if you haven't watched Call the Midwife, it's a good segue to learn more about this.
You might like it,
especially if you like childbirth,
and British period pieces.
Exactly, that's the best. Like they're fun.
But yeah, with the baby, I was laboring out of the pool, and then I was like, I'm gonna get in, it's gonna be so great, because when I had the big one, I was like, this is great, I got in. No, it still sucked. It was bad. He was a big baby. He was like 9 pounds 4 ounces.
It was 9 pounds
and 4 ounces.
Big boy.
He's big. He's a big boy. Amma was big too. She was 8.5. Okay. So I was like, big kids, I guess. But I got in there and I was like, nah, I don't like it. And then I got out, and then a couple hours probably went by, and then I think I was in transition. But because I was having a home birth, the midwives didn't, unless you asked them to check how many centimeters dilated you were, they didn't check. So I didn't ask because I didn't want to, get false hope. And I think I was in transition. I was like, oh God, I can't do this anymore. And Trevor's like, oh, I think that means you're almost done. I'm like, you get out of my face. You don't know. You have no idea. It's going to last another 3 hours. And he's like, I don't know. Maybe go back in the pool. I was like, fine. And then I started pushing, and he was born like less than an hour later. But I think it helped because I don't know, like it was painful no matter what. People say it's like nature's epidural. That's really funny to me. It's not.
Okay. That's good to know.
I've never had an epidural with either of my kids, but I can't imagine that it's not the same. I'm pretty sure it's a little better than the water. But he loves water. He loves water to this day. Like, he's obsessed with water. Every time he took a bath as a baby, like, he never was scared. Like, water calms him down. So I don't know if it's because he was born in the water or something like that. But yeah, he's a little fishy baby.
I can just picture him as just being in a pool or being in, because I've seen pictures of him, so I know kind of that just has to be the cutest.
Yeah.
But speaking of transitioning him to the world, emotionally transitioning after postpartum. So we talk in infant and toddler development, that's hard to say right now, about postpartum depression. That's the big one that most people focus on. Did you experience postpartum emotions that were connected to depression or anxiety or anything else with that?
With my first kid, I did, but I didn't realize it until like years later. Yeah. Which I know sounds crazy. Like, how do you not know you're depressed? I don't know. But when I was paying much more attention to it during my second pregnancy, like when I decided to get pregnant a second time, I think that's when I started putting stuff together. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's actually something I maybe should prepare for with the second one, just in case.
Yeah.
Because looking back, I was like, yeah, you were depressed. It wasn't just like you were tired.
Yeah. How did you, so the first time you didn't know, so I'm guessing there was not that therapy that you were saying that you needed a little earlier and not reaching out for that help that we've talked about. So with your second time around, like, what kind of things did you notice that you're like, oh, that's specifically postpartum? And how did you then handle those specific moments?
With my second pregnancy, I didn't really, postpartum the second time, I think because I realized I had depression and realized I didn't realize it at the time, I was kind of hyper-focused on preventing it from happening at all, if at all possible, because you can do everything you can to make yourself in a good environment, good support systems, and it still can happen. It's not necessarily situational. But I think because I was, like I said, I realized late, so I was like, I can't do anything about it. What happened then? But with the second pregnancy, I can try to be more aware. So I started going to therapy when I was pregnant. So I'm trying to think when it was about 2 years before he was, or 2 months before he was born. I started going to therapy, and she asked why, like your therapist intake, like, oh, what are you seeking service? I'm like, because I'm scared I'm gonna get postpartum depression and I want somebody watching me.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, perfect. I'm really lucky. I had insurance and everything to be able to do that, but I found through another mom friend, it's a therapy practice that is for parents, specifically like mothers, or because they deal with parents or pregnancy, fertility, adoption, stuff like that.
Do you know the name of the organization?
Flourish.
Yes. Okay. We'll drop the info below. Because let's be real, sometimes you need that just little extra connection. So in our previous conversations of postpartum, and again, I know I keep referencing back to conversations that no one can hear.
They can imagine.
They can imagine.
They've have enough like material now at this point. They can pop it in their little...
Exactly. Power of imagination. Postpartum anger is something that I didn't know about for a long time. And I think you were the one who introduced the concept to me
Really?
Yes, you were. So what is it? How is it different? What are some of the things that you notice with postpartum anger? Because I think you were the one who told me about it and introduced me to it. So can you introduce us again to postpartum anger?
People even say the word postpartum. They think you're saying postpartum depression. That's like the only reference some people have that word.
Yeah.
But postpartum rage or anger is kind of like what it sounds like, but it's like you're angry. You're not like, because postpartum depression, you imagine it's like withdrawn. That's how it was my experience. Like I was very tired, very like not motivated. Postpartum anger is more just like, I think a lot of it probably comes from postpartum anxiety or depression. Like it can be a symptom of either one. It's just shorter fuse or just intolerance to like a lot of things. So I don't know. I think a lot of people, like you said, like the joys of childbirth, the beauties of mystical, magical motherhood stuff, and they don't picture a mom being angry.
Yeah.
They picture a mom being blissfully happy. So I think that's probably why it's something like not a lot of people want to think about. Nobody wants to think about a mom with a brand new baby throwing stuff or yelling or just having a short temper. Because like I said, kind of like once you have the baby, they kind of like, you're like, let's worry about the baby. It's like, yes, you should do that. That's great because the baby needs people to worry about the baby. No self-advocacy, but you also kind of need to take care of the mom because the mom is the main person taking care of the baby. So I think a lot of people rush to like judging when there's, especially with anger.
Yeah.
It's an easy one to be like, you can just calm down.
Can you though?
I don't know. That's what everybody tells me. It hasn't worked yet.
There's an all-time low song, not that I'm trying to plug anything, but it's like, don't tell me to calm down. And I just think about that sometimes where it's like,
Has it ever worked?
Has it ever worked?
For anyone? Because
So.
it makes me more mad.
It does. Well, and I think that's part of the thing people don't realize is like sometimes we tell people to calm down and okay, but how, and then teaching small children how to calm down, it's like, how do you calm down? And the first thing is recognizing the emotion.
Hello.
Like you have to recognize the emotion or it gets suppressed and you let it bubble right up.
Yep. I've heard that where like people say like, oh well, you can be mad, but you can't do this. Like if a kid like hits, like you can be mad, but you can't hit. Okay, how about you can be mad so you can do this? Like what's okay to do when you're mad? Because it's gonna happen. Don't just like try to shove it down because that doesn't work.
In my experience, I've found that does not work,
especially with toddlers.
Yes. After being a toddler teacher, you tell them to calm down and they will just scream back in your face. It's not effective.
No, they're like, you calm down.
I make my job sound like it was terrible. It was really fun.
They're great.
It's just, when you know that they have emotions.
They're high intensity emotions no matter what they are. When they're happy, they're joyous.
Right.
They're so happy about like a sticker or like their favorite snack. Like you're like, I wish I was that happy. But when they're mad, they're that mad too.
Yep.
Or sad. They're like, it's the worst thing ever.
They feel it so intensely.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of beautiful about that.
I think so, man. Yeah. I think adults are kind of like not secretly jealous, but they're like, I don't know. One of the things I think a lot of things with adults with kids are like, I can't act like that in public, so you should not be acting like this in public. It's like, you can't, no, but they're a kid. They kind of can.
They have a little bit of a buffer still.
Yeah, no, the rules for them and us are different. Look at adults. Just because your kid's doing something that you don't feel like you can do doesn't mean they're doing something incorrectly.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
No, I love that. And going back a little bit, it does depend on obviously culture and social rules, but where you can let someone have their emotions, let them have their emotions.
As long as they're safe and, Yeah, absolutely. But moms too. Not just, see, we're talking about the kids all over again. We've forgotten about the moms. See, look what I did it too. Oh, God.
No, but that is sometimes what we do when we're talking about infants and toddlers. It's very easy to focus on outside of ourselves instead of just focusing on ourselves, which I love that you talked about that self-care, that self-reflection, and somehow we still end up talking about them, but in a way where we're like, hey, we've talked about ourselves too. We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
We get a point.
Exactly. I love the points that we get. Is there anything else you would add about postpartum anger?
Ooh, I think if you recognize that you experienced it in the past, like I did, if I recognize I had postpartum depression, like give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to feel like that.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have kids, and just know that that's a possibility and something to watch out for. I'm really big on that. It's like, comes with like safety and parenting and all that. It's like, maybe it sounds like a little bit like, oh, be prepared for the worst, but not necessarily. Like knowing what is the possibility gives you the tools to know how to take care of it when it happens, not just be like, what's this? And with postpartum, there's a lot of that.
Were you able to do self-care during postpartum?
Self-care during postpartum, I would say, is its own genre of self-care. Because I think everyone's version of self-care is different, however, but if you gave birth, especially like you're like kind of like your body's a little wrecked, like temporarily, not usually, but like, it's major what happens in your body, and just not just the physical, like the hormones, the mental, the emotional. So adjusting your expectations about what self-care is in that time, and reminding yourself that it is a time. It's a season, or it's whatever you want to call it. It's temporary. So self-care might be like you took a shower.
Yeah.
And for somebody like that didn't just have a kid, they're like, well, that's just basic human necessity. And sometimes when you're taking care of a brand new baby that just came out of your body, that is self-care is like your basic needs. But also, again, ask for help. One example I told my husband is for example, shower. When I take a shower, you take the baby and you go somewhere far away where I cannot hear him crying. Because if I am in the shower, I'm in the shower. I don't want to feel like I have to get out, because I will want to get out if I hear him. So I'm like, I know you're taking very good care of him. Take him where I can't hear him crying. So stuff like that. It was a lot of like planning and like self-advocacy, kind of like communicating stuff to my partner or my other kid. Like, the baby's going to take up a lot of my attention. I will make sure no one's ignoring you, but like for temporary expectation adjustments. Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything that we didn't talk about postpartum that you're like, I would love to mention this before we stop talking?
Yes. One thing I will say is a tip for everybody. If you're like somebody's good friend, so if you're going to a baby shower, if you're like, it's your coworker's cousin, whatever, get a onesie, get the cutest onesie you can find. If it's your friend or someone you hold very dear, get them a postpartum gift.
Okay.
Don't get the baby a present, because everybody else is going to get the baby a present.
Yes.
Right? Nobody's going to get the mom nothing usually. Maybe nowadays people are getting a little more. I see people do like crowdfunding for a postpartum doula as like a
I haven't
baby
seen that
shower
one yet.
gift. That's people. Some people do that, or some people, I guess, if they have the means, they can just gift it as a baby shower gift.
Yeah.
But yeah, be the person that says, I'm watching you, I got you.
See, I've seen people give, like, I don't know what they're called, but they're like for the shower. So instead of taking, because, so you have all those things you put in the bath, where they're like, I know you don't have enough time to take a bath. Here's something for your shower.
Like a steamer.
Yeah. Like something like that. I've seen that.
It was like that. They make boxes online. I actually bought one for my sister-in-law when she was having a baby. But I made one before I saw they made boxes, but it was like pads and like stuff like those, like kind of like self-care items, recovery items. So it was like stuff like the shower stuff, the nice stuff, but like also the stuff that maybe nobody's going to buy you. Like there were these pads that I made. Like I was like, okay, this is genius. Where was this the first time I had a kid? Because I had 12 years between. So many technology advancements in between. My goodness. They had these pads that you crack them like a glow stick, and then they're cold packs. and it was like genius. And I'm like, I'm giving these to everybody. I don't care if it's embarrassing.
No,
I'm so sorry that I'm giving you
Yeah.
a gift that is like alluding to your vagina, but like
Right.
I promise you're gonna need it. Like,
Yeah.
and I like don't feel like there's enough of that where people are like, I know it's embarrassing,
Yes.
and I'm not trying to be up in your business, but you're gonna need a little TLC also, and you might not know what you need necessarily or know how to ask in that moment.
Absolutely. I think that's beautiful.
DoorDash gift cards too.
DoorDash gift card. Yes, I've seen those too, where it's like just that way people can just get food on the go and whatever you need.
My friend who lives in Colorado, she called a Thai food place and had them send me food.
Yeah.
Like, so stuff like that too. Like, just be like, can I send you a meal? And also, if you're visiting somebody that just had a baby, don't go to their house unless you are willing to wash dishes, do laundry. That's it.
Understandable.
One of the things I did that I think that helped me a lot the second time is I didn't host anybody. I only had people at my house that I knew they could make themselves comfortable and help out. But I didn't feel like I had to let everybody in.
Yes.
So it's just like, be aware of what's a little too much for you.
Yeah.
Some people want their whole family to come visit them, and that's fine too. But be selfish. Again, I say selfish. I don't really mean it, but kind of based on, like we said, like norms about what's it sounds selfish when you're like put the mom into perspective, because like I said, everything's usually about the baby, but it's like, no, baby wouldn't be here sometimes if it wasn't for that person.
Well, something I've heard too is that I've heard like between some people where they're like, oh, I heard that moms don't feel like themselves for a while after. And I talked to some of my friends and they're like, no, I still felt like myself. It's just that my body didn't feel like myself. Like I was still mentally myself. So like that's a weird misconception that some people have. Do you agree with that? Or is that something that you were like, no, I still felt like myself the whole time, or you didn't know?
I did. Yes and no, I guess.
Yeah.
Physically, I didn't feel like totally like out of my own body. Maybe because the first time I was so young. So I'm guessing when you have a baby when you're younger, you recover quicker. So maybe it wasn't. And then the second time I kind of knew what to expect. So maybe it was a little bit of that. I do realize though, with both my kids, it took me a while to get back to where I felt like myself aesthetically, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense.
Like I got back to my like style, which sounds very surface level, I know, but I don't know, like, oh, in a way I could like express myself because I have a little bit more time for myself. So that took till both my kids were like 2. So, but certain other things, especially if you're breastfeeding too, you kind of feel like your body's not your body. Sometimes I know that a lot of people identify with that because they're like, yeah, it is yours, but it like you just went from being pregnant where it's not completely all yours.
Right.
And then when you're breastfeeding, same thing. So that I feel like probably I felt like that a little bit, but yeah, I don't know why I was like, it took me till my kids are 2 to like get my little fashion back, which is so funny, but it's like, because you kind of got to focus on other stuff. So
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for coming. I've loved this conversation.
Oh my God.
I had so much fun.
Me too.
Before I let you go,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to give whichever camera, or we can even have Yanellis move. But we have a person listening in today. But what advice would you give? So we're talking in this class, we're giving this class specifically to people who are studying early childhood development, which is typically infant and toddler teachers. What advice would you give them for working with infants and toddlers, whether it's related to what we're talking about today or whether it's something you've noticed from your own child's daycare experience? What words of wisdom do you have?
Words of wisdom I would have for those who are going into early childhood education is to remember how we've been talking about that support systems are very important. So advocate for accessible resources, be knowledgeable about the resources that exist for parents, And because a lot of parents, they're kind of insulated with themselves and they don't often know what's available to them. So being the part of their community that is able to direct them somewhere that's helpful to them, being open-minded and empathetic, I think, because families are all, like we've been talking about, culturally different, different situations all over. Every family is going to be different, so you can't look at everything through the same lens necessarily. And just be as empathetic as possible. It's hard to be a kid. It's hard to be a parent. Everyone usually is trying their best. And just, yeah, try to remember that everybody's just trying to do their best.
It's wonderful. Thank you. I love those words of wisdom. Thanks for coming.